Namaste and welcome to this 10 p.m. session on Wednesday, which many of our people abroad are always very, very keen to follow. And today we are going to, I promise you, a rollicking session. Why a rollicking session? Because not only do I have Shri Vibhuti Jha as usual, Wednesday 10 p.m., we also have Dr. Sunil Raina. Let me introduce Dr. Sunil Raina to you. Dr. Sunil Raina is a public health expert. He is head and professor of community medicine in a place called Tanda in Himachal Pradesh, and that's in District Kangra. And he is also an epidemiologist and has, of course, authored numerous publications and papers and all that. We don't go too deep into it. And he has very strong views about this whole pandemic. And as we said, is COVID-19 a targeted pandemic? So to begin with, what I do is that I go straight to Vibhuti Ji and I ask him as to what the public perception is in the US of A. Because here in India, I think there is a growing perception that this is a targeted pandemic. And it is purely political in nature. What is the USA public point of view is right now, the dominant public view?
Thank you, Sanjay ji, for a wonderful start. Whether it is going to be a rollicking session or not, I do not know, but that will depend upon the scientific evidence that Professor Sunil Raina ji brings to derail or accentuate or aggravate a particular point of view. But I'm happy to share with your audience and to our audience, if I may say so, that just about the time when this particular virus had been declared pandemic, I was in a conversation with another doctor here in Long Island, and he opined that two things. And I said that this is not looking like a natural born disease. It doesn't look like a naturally caused thing. And it was purely my layman thinking and my sixth, seventh, or no sense talking to me. So the point which I'm trying to make is that there is a kind of a studied silence or a studied understanding of things. And that doctor told me, and he was in the front line of COVID fight here, running and managing a 40-bed ICU, as well as the chief of medicine of a major hospital. And he said, Fauci is misleading the audience, the people. He was very categorical. His bluntness came from his father. He said, he confessed later on, tell the truth the way it is, don't mince it. And he said that. These two statements of his were very powerful. But now what we know, it's a year and a half down the line. The two things that we do know, and that data says it all, that the two of the largest economies in the world, is the United States, with 587,000 deaths and 33 million cases, leads the data. And India is now number two, with 25.5 million cases and 283,000 deaths, which has mostly been spurred by the second wave that came across. India handled the first wave remarkably well. The question then it pops up in my mind is that although India's deaths and cases per capita basis is much less than the rest of the other 20 countries, and data are floating all over the world, so we don't have to do that. But my conjecture is that it's not an accident that a large economy like United States has been hit hard, whose president, the former president, boasted and talked about how he had revived the US economy. His talking point was not his political agenda or his political achievements. His thing was that I turned the economy around. He called the China bluff on currency, on everything else, and he has been derailed. Number two is India. The second, a very large economy, trying to become the engine of growth, and all the businesses leaving China on account of virus or on account of political uncertainty, they were coming to India, and India had been talking about welcoming companies from China to India. Lo and behold, China has been testing. Modi had called his bluff in Galwan and Ladakh valleys. The result is these were the two leaders, Trump and Modi, who took on President Xi head on. And President Xi had to back down. Obviously, you look for allies to do certain things, and these two are perceived as a major threat to the Chinese hegemony around the world. This is the political element. One thing has been established, and Dr. Raina will definitely confirm that. This is not a natural flying of the disease. This is not caused by natural thing. Because there are enough literature available, and I was reading some of them, that the passing off from bat, the whole theory of the wet market and natural thing has been proven wrong, although the evidence is still being collected. But what is very likely that the doors from which the virus sprung out or escaped is Wuhan lab, and where the conditions under which the lab testing was done, sequencing was done, spiking happened, or I would like to know from him. One of the key things that is called about here is what I wrote here. Very interesting theory was that how did furin cleavage and codons spread out? How the scientists played upon this. The whole group of virologists is being blamed right now that they did not call out the farce. There is money went from the US Wuhan lab was this to destabilize this particular thing was handled. In the United States also, the Republican Party is leading the entire argument. And the American people also believe that it has its origin in China. Democrats are not talking about it. This is another very interesting thing. Democrats are not talking about it. Republicans are. And the Senate hearing that happened, Senator Rand Paul, a Republican, really nailed and pinned Dr. Fauci very seriously, both in terms of the money that went from US to China, and whether directly from National Institute of Health or through its Allergy and other institute, the money went there. So there are a lot of elements that have been totally suppressed. The Chinese government is to be blamed. The Chinese authorities are to be blamed for not disseminating the information ever since December 19, when this whole thing began to unfold. That's the point which is very important. And it takes me back to the reference to the second breakout that happened in India. That appears varieties of factors, no doubt, but there was something more to it than just a breakout of one reason or the other, or a public assembly on account of varieties of factors. So, international media, you can see there is an international media attacking Modi's failures, not realizing that Indian deaths are 300,000 less than America. Here in New York, one guy got an Emmy Award for his renditions, despite having the maximum number of kills. So there are a whole lot of issues involved in it. But what is important here to bear in mind, the political attack that is going on. You have a cacophony of attack on Modi and India's infrastructure, but people forget that on a per capita basis, this disease has hit hard a very strong medical infrastructure of the United States and its people, and a not so perfect healthcare system in India. So you're looking at a very discordant scenario. It hit hard. It did not discriminate. That's the point which is important. And here is a very eerie similarity. What New York, California, New Jersey, Washington, and Portland, Oregon, the state of Oregon, were to Trump, so is Maharashtra. I call them Lagu Rashtra now. Maharashtra, Mumbai, Delhi, Rajasthan, and other Kerala, these states, these are all non-BJP government. These are the killer data that is coming out from there. Is that a coincidence? We will never know. Or probably we will if we continue our investigation the way we are doing it right now. That would be my opening. Thank you very much.
Okay. Excellent opening statement.
Thank you.
Vibhuti Ji, as usual. Now I come to Dr. Raina. Dr. Raina, you heard the layman's perspective. I gave you a little bit of mine, and Vibhuti is giving it from the United States. Now, you are the expert. What do you think of these layman's perspectives? Is it corroborated by any of your expert findings?
First, thanks for having me here. And second, and more importantly, I don't think that Vibhuti Ji's perspectives are layman perspectives. They hold a lot of water, to be very honest with you. How do I see it? I see it in two ways. Two important points were raised by Vibhuti. One, that the vaccine is not natural, or somebody told him that the vaccine is not natural. And second, is there a design in discrediting India? I think both of these perspectives are correct to a lot of extent. We come to the first one, that the virus is not natural. How do we say that? I don't go into the genetic part of it, because that is something that has been given to us by a lot of people around the world. They have said that there are reasons to believe that this has been created or does not have the same features that a natural virus does have. I don't go into that detail. What I would like to present here is the similarities or the dissimilarities a natural virus has with a created virus, or a virus that is created in a setup or a lab. Now, if you look at this particular pandemic, that is the current pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the closest that we have to this pandemic is the SARS pandemic, which was there around between 2002 to 2004, and the MERS pandemic. These are the two closest that we have to this pandemic in terms of the type of virus that we have at this point in time. So we have the SARS-CoV-2, which is of the same lineage that were these MERS and the SARS-1, which is generally referred to as SARS-1. Now, if we look at both these SARS-1 and the MERS pandemics, which were of limited nature, didn't spread across the world to the same extent that this has happened. In fact, a very smaller extent. But if you look at these two pandemics, the MERS and the SARS-1, they had a pattern to it. And they behave more naturally in terms of that pattern. So what do we see as a pattern in these pandemics? The pattern is that both these pandemics, the MERS and the SARS, were season unstable. What I mean by season unstable was that once the temperatures rose in some particular part of the world, if the virus was there, the fatality, the number of cases will drop there. So it was a very season unstable virus that is expected for every respiratory virus. So every respiratory virus is supposed to be season unstable. Temperatures rise, or you don't have huge amount of precipitation, the chances are that the virus will go away and there won't be any deaths or disease. But unfortunate part with this COVID-19 is that it is season stable, which means that whether it is the summer, it's the winter, whether you go to the northern part of the world, you go to the southern part of the world, it behaves almost the same. For example, if you see the second part of the wave that hit us in the April and the May month, generally speaking, we all believe that the May month is something where we don't see respiratory illnesses at its peak. We don't see diseases which behave the way this COVID-19 is behaving, or similar type of illnesses, most likely the influenza illnesses. They don't behave this way. Generally, we see a dip in these diseases. But this is something which is not being followed by COVID-19. So the fact that COVID-19 is stable season-wise tells us that it is not natural, may not be natural. It may be an artificially created virus. One. The second part with this is this virus is, which is again related to the earlier pandemics of the MERS and the SARS, is that if you look at those two viruses, we could establish a transmission chain for both SARS and MERS. So we could find which was the origin of the virus, which was the reservoir of the virus, which was the transmitting host of the virus, where did the species jump, and we could find that easily in both these pandemics, the MERS and the SARS. As also the fact that once MERS and SARS went away, it could leave environmental traces of the virus that was causing MERS and SARS. Both these things are not happening with this COVID-19 at this point in time. We are not able to identify the intermediate host at this point in time. People say that we have been able to identify the original host, but we have not been able to identify the intermediate host. And we are not seeing the environmental traces, at least at this point in time, of the level that we saw in MERS or SARS. So again, something which doesn't fit into the natural virus category that we see over a period of time. The unfortunate part of this pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, is that it has been compared to a pandemic which happened 100 years ago, 1918, and most commonly people compare Spanish flu with this COVID-19 pandemic. But the similarities are not there. If you look at both these pandemics, the Spanish flu was a classic influenza pandemic, which was created by influenza virus, which was caused by the influenza virus, which is in contrast to what is being caused now. COVID-19 is a different virus. It's not the same virus. And drawing inferences from Spanish flu and applying them to COVID-19 is the trick that is being played by everybody around the world. So that is where my concerns are more. That's why I say that even if the fact that this was a natural virus, which I don't agree with, I say that this is unnatural. This is not a natural virus because it doesn't follow the fundamental rules of nature. Even if it was a natural virus, the after effect of this pandemic is being used to target not just India, but economies like India to the same extent. And America is a very good example of that. Why America or India is the one which is being targeted at the same level is a very good example of that. There are reasons for that, why they are saying America or India is not doing well with regard to this pandemic. So we go to that slightly later. So what do we look at the Spanish flu? What do we talk about this particular COVID-19 in comparison to Spanish flu? You say that the Spanish flu came in waves. The first wave, then the second wave came, the third wave came, the fourth wave came. The second wave was very strong as compared to the first wave. The second wave killed more people than the first wave. So you are creating an inevitability of waves in the minds of general public so that they get used to it. And that inevitability is something which is being used by people who are interested in this pandemic and driving their own agenda. That is something that is, again, a worrisome aspect of this particular pandemic. So the fact that everybody, if you look at the virologists in India, or if you look at the scientific experts who claim themselves to be scientific experts of stature, they will claim that we are waiting for the third wave to come now. They will say that the fourth wave will again come now. So that is playing on a fear of the common masses, of the political class of this country, playing on that fear and pushing an agenda which is very close to their own heart, and which is not the agenda which America or India was following in its health infrastructure for the last 100 years or so. So that is something that is more important than the fact that whether it was natural or unnatural. So these are my opening remarks with regard to this.
Okay. So that is interesting. Vibhuti Ji, if we look at what is called the circumstantial evidence, and there's lots and lots floating about. You have Senator Rand Paul and you have Mike Pompeo holding forth on this whole issue now. Now that the Wuhan lab leak theory in collaboration from the US is more or less established, we also find that maybe some people had an advanced knowledge. And Pfizer is being accused of being the insider and being the one who was actually profiting the most from this epidemic. Of course, a lot of people also raising other issues that they are actually playing the devil, foraging at the troubles of or the what is called the ravages that the population is suffering.
It is, let me put it this way to you, that this particular thing, the Republican Party, the President Trump, they lost out badly. And definitely this also created a scenario in the US that the economy which was going gung-ho, the economy that was going absolutely ballistic with reference to its performances, the whole thing derailed. Nobody knew anything. Chinese authorities did not disclose adequate information as to how to control it. Nobody knows how China controlled the whole thing, right? So there is a definite silence on account of various professionals, politicians, as to the absolute. Dr. Raina very correctly mentioned that there is no trace of this. SARS-1 and MERS had left a trace behind. You could track it back. There is no trace of this. And as I was reading some of the literature, in terms of curiosity, power factor, is that this was tested. This is very pliable with human cells. So it is very interesting to find out that it takes me back. I mean, I did not like that movie as much, Mission Impossible 2, but they have talked about the sequence of events. That's what is unfolding right now. So I'm not relating to the movie, but I'm telling you that the second spike that happened in India was not an accident. It may have been behavioral elements of the society for what it was, but there was certainly something more to it. We will not know that until investigations are done. So the point which is important here is that US economy has derailed. I mean, today's economy 4 months down the line is not what I saw 4 months ago. You have gas prices up, you have everything up. You had an attack on the US oil pipeline. It reminded me of another movie, a Bruce Willis movie, Live Free or Die Hard, something like that, in which the entire, the grids are attacked by the foreign people. So America is up, has gone, is up shit creek, as the saying goes, in America, it's totally in a bad mess. And it all started with this. The thing about America is, and I say this with confidence, that this country has one thing very clear. Once I get my chance, I'll get you. That's what they did in Afghanistan. That's what they did in Iraq. Right or wrong, I'm not sitting on judgment. But they do hit back. There will be a response to this. Only thing is that had it been Trump, there would have been Republicans, there would have been a greater response. The Democrats, we do not know, because they are peddling political suicide in this scenario, because they have taxed the people so much. And the new taxes are coming, price hike is happening. There is a definite concern in the US as to how the shape of things is going to be looking forward. But one thing is good, that mask mandates are falling. Cases have flattened. So many cities are opening up. And as a result of which, you will see, for the first time ever, in England, you had 10,000 people allowed in the stadium. You are having basketball games here where people are now being allowed. So there is a concerted effort to return to normalcy, but there are still so many people who are not vaccinated. There are still people who are yet to receive the entire vaccination. So there is a risk, a very serious risk out here as yet, because of the simple fact, as Dr. Raina said, that this virus moves from people to people very fast, and it is not leaving behind any trace. It did not, what you call, modify. That the modification of this virus has not happened as much. It has not mutated as people talked about it, except for in the case of India, where they have begun to actively call it India virus. But so there are many indicators that it is not a freak of nature or an accident. It is being played.
Okay, so I was once again I want to go a little deeper into it, and I actually take my cue from Senator Rand Paul, and I would like to ask Dr. Raina that you would have noticed the collaboration between the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases of the USA and the Wuhan laboratory. And this has, I think, this has roots that go almost 6 or 7 years back. And at the same time, Dr. Fauci, who is the head of this particular institute for nearly 40 years, a little less than 40 years, he seemed to hold back data. He seemed to try and cover it up. And he seemed to be less than truthful even in the Senate hearing. Is that a smoking gun? Does that point out to an active collaboration between people who actually wanted to do some kind of a political targeting, or who were actually in the employ of China in order to give China a definite economic and political edge in the world affairs? Does it look like that?
Look, how do I see it? I see in two different ways. There are only two ways with which you can control this world. One way is to control this world is through war. So you wage a war with the country and capture it, control it. The second way of controlling world is through health. Health is easiest and the biggest way of controlling the world. When you asked Vibhuti Ji a question, is Pfizer benefited or has Pfizer benefited from this COVID-19 pandemic? I would say COVID-19 pandemic has benefited a syndicate, and that syndicate consists of political elite. It consists of virologists. It consists of scientific bodies. It consists of pharmaceutical houses. It consists of funders like the Gates Foundation. It consists of a lot of people who have particular targets or ambitions in their mind. And that particular target or ambition is to control the health of countries politically through a narrative and then hold an economic interest in that particular country. I see it this way. I again come to a story sort of a thing. Now, if you look at India, I again come to India because I see India as a template being run across the world now at this point in time. Now, if you look at India in 1938, India thought of a system of public health which will take care of the poorest of poor in India. So they thought that this public health system will take care of the poor people in India. And that opinion was held for a large period of time. So when we got independent, till round about 1970s, we held that opinion that health is an essential component of community development program. So community is an essential component of health and community needs to be developed if we want to develop health. Now that process was lost over a period of time. Over a period of time, the world around, the rich of the world and the political elite of India, they saw that the way to enter into health infrastructure with regard to India was through development of vertical programs. So they made programs for example, TB. They made programs for malaria. They made programs for later on for HIV/AIDS or for universal immunization program. So using these vertical programs, they would say that we will control the health system that is being run in this country. Now, what happened after some period of time? In the middle of 2010 to 2020, we saw a new thing happening in India, and that was development of what we now call as the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Now, the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was seen by the world as reinforcement of what India had been thinking with regard to tackling health issues in India. So India again started thinking of health being an integral part of community development program. So if you improve sanitation in India, you will improve health. If you improve housing in India, you will improve health. If you improve the environmental status of average Indian, you will improve health. But this is something that didn't go well with the Indian elite and the rich of the world, because their idea of controlling the health in different countries is through these vertical programs, which are funded by them and indirectly benefiting them only. So that is how it runs as far as India is concerned. And that is why I said this COVID-19 pandemic has been really used or exploited for that particular issues only. So if you look at now what is happening in this COVID-19 pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic is being used as a single method to target development of an adult immunization program in India. That is the way they are seeing it. So they are saying that if India wants to counter its number of cases that are growing in India, the best way to do is to develop an immunization program which will run day after tomorrow and will cover everybody who's in India. So that's one where Pfizer comes in, for example. So Pfizer says that after my second dose of vaccination, I should be giving a vaccine dose again after 6 months. So once the 6 months period will go up, so maybe we will need a booster dose. So Pfizer gets into this. Pfizer earns from that. So if India has an adult immunization program which runs on flu model or for COVID-19, so the entire money that may have been used for some other purposes will be diverted to this program, which will be indirectly or directly benefiting the rich elite of the world as well as the political elite of India, who are a part of that syndicate who run this program. Now, most of these people, whether, as you said, the Faucis, the Gates, the Pfizer, they are all connected in this, and they all want this to be working on the same directions, so that the same agenda is run through most of the countries. If you look at the first part of the pandemic, now India was seen to be successful in first part of the pandemic, despite not having used vaccination or immunization to a large extent. We didn't go with vaccination, but we were able to reduce the numbers, which were peaking at around 1 lakh in the end of September and October, to around 7 to 11,000 in the month of February. But the numbers increased. There are different reasons for that, why the numbers increased. But more important than that is the fact that that increase in number was used as a political mileage to target the Indian system of health that is being currently in practice. So India precisely practices a dichotomy structure. It has a private structure, it has a public health structure, and that is almost similar to what is being practiced in US. It doesn't use a socialized medicine concept of health infrastructure. And what does the rich elite and these pharma companies and these foundations want? They want that most of these countries, like US or in India, should run a socialized medicine concept wherein they donate money, or say we are donating money, and use it for their own benefits. So that is the problem that has come up with this COVID-19. And unfortunate part is that we have played a part to it. We have been a part. We have played a part to it. For example, I again talk the same. If you look at the numbers that we are producing at this point in time, so a few days back we were producing around 4,12,000 number. So it's a huge pool of patients, huge pool of virus, which could have been investigated in a better way to know whether the mutations have happened naturally, whether there have been mutations which have been induced, or whether these have been lab leaked mutations. But unfortunately, we didn't do the random genetic diversity analysis of the entire pool of virus samples that we had with us, and we didn't open up the data that is available with us, which we could have shown to the world and told them this is how exactly the virus is behaving, how exactly the virus has been created, or how exactly the virus has mutated or not mutated, and this is the total story to be told. So India has been a part of what the world has done. If America has hidden data, India has also not come up with the entire data on how exactly the disease has spread, how exactly the virus has behaved. So we all have played a part because we all are following the same syndicate that is interested in investing in these countries through vertical programs, gaining from those programs and benefiting themselves.
Okay, that's a very, very interesting perspective. I think I didn't really look at that. But you didn't really answer my question about the collaboration between the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and the Wuhan laboratory.
That collaboration is in public domain. But before that, I would tell you one thing. The best research or the best investigation on the Spanish flu again came from the US only. And if you look at the pandemics that have happened in after 1918 or even prior to 19, most of the pandemics have some or the other links with the Chinese population. So whether it is a Yunnan province, whether it is a Wuhan area, whether it is the Hubei province, so they have somehow been linked to most of these. So developing a collaboration has been the scientific scapegoat for most of the world. So what did they say? What did the Americans say? So we are trying to develop a collaboration with Chinese because of the fact that China is able to provide us the best resource on influenza or related viruses that is available across the world. So that is what they say, publicly what they say. But unofficially, all of us are aware of the fact that there is a clear-cut relationship between the American epidemiologist, American virologist with the Chinese virologists or the Chinese scientists who are working on coronavirus or similar types of viruses. That is known to everybody. But my point is simple, that whether this was a cleverly created bioweapon or not, that is something about which we are not certain. It may have leaked, which we can debate whether it has leaked and how did it leak, which is something which can be debated. But whether it was a bioweapon which was created and intentionally thrust on the society is something which is again with which we are not very conclusive at this point in time. For that, I have simple one or two reasons. As you said, that every person who would like to throw a bioweapon into a particular population would want to be safe himself first. So if there was a clear-cut collaboration between the US and the China on developing a bioweapon and throwing it to the world, then maybe US should have been the first country to develop the vaccine. Unfortunately, they didn't. Or the fact is that who are heading this program in US lied to its people. So that may be one another reason. Again, because of the fact that most of these scientists, researchers, or these pharma companies are all in a group, and they will always keep their secrets close to their chest.
Okay. Vibhuti ji, you looked at that perspective that Dr. Raina brought in. And I think if that perspective becomes the ruling perspective, or the, what should I say, the dominant perspective, I think the Democrats in the United States will have a lot to answer for. Muted. You're muted, sir.
I was telling that eventually, yes, because we are living in a world where the news travels. There is no news about this virus that is not available on the website or whatever else. But there are certain things. How do we derive or how do we come to a conclusion is individual. Now, everybody is trying to come to a conclusion by himself or herself based on what you see, read, and understand. But there are certain things which are, you can't ignore. Because there is a thing called, as a word which was used, technical word was gain of function. I mean, you know it better. But there is also a very important point that the lab standards that has come out now. So apparently there are 4 levels of security that is performed in the labs of this kind, which goes from, it's called BSL-1 to BSL-4. BSL-4 is the tightest security thing. The tightest security means that if you are doing a research, you are virtually wearing space mask and a space attire. Your speed of activity is very slow. You come down to BSL-3, but the important thing to know here is that Professor Shi or Dr. Shi, who was doing this research, was operating under BSL-2, which is what in the US they call it the dentist office security levels. So if you are operating on this particular pattern, then you already exposed. That's the reason why people in those Wuhan lab contracted this virus and they died. The other element also is that, in a gain of function analysis, they were potentially trying to make sure that if a pandemic of SARS-1 and MERS were to happen again, so they were injecting the humanized mice. And I did not know about this phrase. That we always heard about the mice testing, rat testing, mice testing, but these mice are not mice, they are humanized mice. So they knew that they were testing to prevent future. The argument and the conversation is that the risk-reward syndrome far outweighed the entire conversation. That if the potential of the virus leaking was very high, and virus was already tested on human mice, so to say, when it went out, it just spread. The issue here is also very important that the Chinese never let anybody else know. There was no transparency. Even till now, we do not know what the Chinese did to protect its own citizens. But on the contrary, the virus was allowed to move via people all over the world. And that's how you see that it contaminated. But who is like in any crime scene, they say, who benefits from this all? Let's ask a fundamental question, which I've often shared. Albert Einstein's quote that any intelligent fool can complicate a simple problem. Let's look at the other way around, right? Who is benefiting from all of it? There is only one country that is benefiting from all of it. It's China. Every other country in the world has been hit hard. China is still partying in Wuhan itself. So the question arises that while we are struggling, who gained from it? It's a simple crime theory investigation. Who is gaining from it all? And when we know that our enemy is using the democratic principles to its advantage, as the saying goes, criminals use the compassion of the societies and the weakness of the laws of the democratic society. Keep collecting evidence. You know, Pakistan is asking for evidence for 2611. Can you guess? Think about it. So China will keep asking evidence, and until you have a conclusive proof, you can't blame anybody. But now you, as you very rightly said in your opening, was the circumstantial evidence. Let's look at what is happening. The countries that are hit hardest are the Western economies, and of course, United States and India. US has 587,000 deaths. I don't think US planned for it. I don't think Fauci planned for it. But there is a joke. There is a joke said jocularly, but a remarkably serious matter, that the funding to Wuhan labs did go from America. And Fauci did not disclose that right in the beginning. And even today, he was, there is another thing that has happened, and that is we are all witness to that. You are immediately victimized if you say something against that. There was a very interesting write-up in which they say they blamed the virologists from all over the world. It's a very small community. And apparently these virologists live by the government grants. The government grants or the grants coming from institutions like this. So nobody went against the protocol or what was happening to say this. There is a write-up there that says the virologists of the world need to share a part of the blame. They were the ones who actually knew what was going on. They ought to have come up and said that this is not okay, that the virus can escape. There is a very interesting statement that the future gain by containing this particular virus was zero, but negligible, because it is already tested on the human mice. Why did you do it? So, like sometimes they say that every criminal is sorry after the event. You hear it in the courts. I should not have done it. I have hurt the family. But the damage is done. And I'm 100% sure, Sanjayji and Sunilji, and to the audience, I say that eventually, I'm very sure the speed of investigation is very, very lightning. And you will find that the finger will be put, whether it is Dr. Shi, the whistleblowers, someone will come up about this entire thing.
Okay, so Dr. Raina, two things. This is my this is the last question from me in this episode, and after that we'll go to the audience. Let's take the audience questions. And to the audience, please start asking your questions now, because after this we'll be going to the question answer round. Dr. Raina, two things come out from this statement of Vibhuti Ji. And one of them is, of course, that all the virologists need to share the blame. They knew what was going on. That is one statement. And the second one is that, of course, truth will be out. Truth will out. Whoever has done it, if there is a conspiracy or is an accident, it will be found out. So what do you think in the light of these two statements? What is your opinion? And then you can sum it up all by telling us the way forward, how to prevent such occurrences in future.
Both of these are very important statements, as Vibhuti Ji put it. One is that all virologists need to take blame. I would say all scientists need to take blame, not just virologists. Because what I believe is that, as I said earlier on, most of the scientists in the top bracket at this point in time in the world depend on grants, as he rightly pointed out. And there are few granting bodies that will continue to give grants. It's the same granting bodies, and these granting bodies create a narrative. So if you accept their narrative, if you are a part of their narrative, you will continue to get the grant and you will continue to be held as the #1 expert in the world. If you fall way back, if you don't accept their opinion, if you don't follow that narrative, you will lose your prominence as an expert at the world scenario. So what does that mean is that, so for example, if I'm going against the narrative that is being spread by the grantees, after some period of time, you won't see Sunil Raina anywhere in the world. So if Sunil Raina says anything on this virus or anything on the pandemics, his opinion will be considered as malified and purely non-scientific. So what happens with scientific communities is scientific communities most of the times tend to follow the same path. They tend to behave the way the grantees, the funders expect them to behave. So I don't at any point in time think that there will be a true picture of this COVID-19 appearing at some point of time in very near future. I don't think something like that is going to happen in very near future. It will continue to be a mystery, and it will continue to be a mystery for a long period of time. The second point that he raised was about Dr. Jha was.
The first point, of course, was the all virologists sharing the blame. And the second one was
the truth will be out. The truth will be out. Again, as I said, this world of health infrastructure is controlled by a fixed group. We need to understand. And you look at this way. Now, at one point in time, the Gates Foundation says that vaccines should be provided to the entire world. The poorest of the poor should receive the vaccines. This is a statement that comes from Gates Foundation at all points in time. Now, all of us know that for a single dose of vaccine that I have to make, for example, at this point in time, if I'm making a vaccine of AstraZeneca Covishield, I need a number of ingredients, and they come from 10 different pharmaceutical industries. Some say that there are around 300 ingredients that are required to make one single dose, and they come from 30 different countries. They're sourced from 30 different countries in the world. Now, at one point in time, he says all people in the world should receive the vaccine. At the same point in time, he says that there should be patency laws. The patency laws need to be respected. So you cannot make vaccine manufacturing, you cannot open up the gates to vaccine manufacturing so that everybody can make it. So vaccines will be made. The ingredients will be made by some people. They will hold the patency. They will sell them at their own price, the way they want to control it. At the same point in time, he tells people, buy them, use them. So that's how most of the narrative is controlled. So if I don't agree to subscribe to that narrative, I will be sent to be seen as somebody who doesn't understand public health. He doesn't understand epidemiology. So that's why I say the truth may not be told, not in the very nearest future, and all scientists across the world need to take the blame for it. Not just with regard to the viral component of it, with regard to the data also. Whether we have been very forthright with data, whether we have tried to interpret and analyze data in a proper manner, whether we have been able to use that data for prevention of transmission or control of the disease, we have all failed in that. So none of the scientists is ready to take the blame, and that is something that goes down as hidden truth. And maybe after 10, 15 years, somebody may come out and say that this was the reason for this. At this point in time, I don't see anything like that happening.
Oh, but that's really serious. I think that you seem to suggest that the web of conspiracy or the web of the conspirators is so closely guarded and so close-knit that they can get away with murder. Is that so?
I'll just add something to this. I'm an optimist. I believe that I believe in the dharmic way of things, that dharma will prevail in this particular thing, Sunilji. The issue that I'm talking, you are right about this. The cartel that operates, yesterday I had made a mention that academics may call the form of government by democracy, socialism, communism, capitalism, or whatever. But in reality, it is run by a band of very close group of people who are cynical, who are scheming, who are clever to control the majority. And that's the way the process runs. But here is a thing called a technology thing, something that we did not know would happen. But for technology, we won't have assembled here from Himachal, Delhi, Jaipur, and New York. But for technology, we won't be having access to information that we were having. So the governments are also now concerned as to how much can you really hide. And we are living in a culture now, and which is a good culture, or people are trying to expose the truth. Because somewhere along the line, somebody's conscience bites, it pricks. And that's how you get to know reality in a different way. There are a lot of people who want to expose this these close-knit, cartels that operate and control us. And you are right. I mean, I said to Bill Gates in a tweet, you couldn't handle a relationship, but you would now tell others how to manage their life and how the country should manage their life. You could not manage your own little life of one woman. But now you know the story why, isn't it? So he was cousin of Jeffrey Epstein in his escapades that was there. So people have failings because of his personal, degradation of his, sexual exploits that he was indulging in. It will hit. That information could be secret some years ago, not now. People are now talking. So as a result of which, that's the one thing which President Xi, the president for life, fears now. That's why he's combing down and he's attacking and shutting down. Even a simple magazine, Goa Chronicle, think about it. The scare and the fear that people have, what is happening where, is important. And that's why I have said India needs its own Facebook, own Twitter, own YouTube, so that our views are not shut down tomorrow by somebody.
Just if you give me a few seconds to this. I'm not very...
My question still remains.
We will know.
I'm not very sure of what this technology is able to deliver to us in terms of research or outcomes of research. I give you an example. If you look at the best known research portal that we have for medicine is the PubMed. If you look at the last 1 year or so, PubMed has been COVIDized. So if you look at the number of publications that are there on PubMed, on COVID only, it runs in more than 1 lakh. It's around 1,35,000 research papers. If you look at the antecedents of this research, where from this research has come, what kind of research is this? And if you go to the internet, use technology and want to search what you really want to search, there are very less chances that you will get what you want to search. Because the dominant search on the web, on the net, will be decided by the people who have been using it more frequently. So the most cited research, the most seen research, the most talked about research will be there, not the best research. So where India has, that's where I come again and again, where India has failed us or failed scientists is in that we have not been able to create a system of translational research which would have been useful to us. So I'm a doctor and I want to tell people that I'm doing very well as far as my research is concerned. What do I tell them? That I have this number of publications on PubMed. I don't tell them that I have this number of research that has been able to benefit the people of this country, or I have this much of research which has translated the life of people. So we have not been able to put a premium on translational research in India, but we have been telling them to follow the narrative that is being followed by the world. Go to the PubMed, put your publications in PubMed. Whether they have value or not for Indians, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, my original question, that is, do you think that this is such a close-knit group and such a cozy club that truth may be hidden forever, that they can get away with all their conspiracies?
The fact is that it is a cozy group. If you look at the scientific experts or the medical experts or the virologists, it's a closed group. There is no doubt about that. But I don't say that the truth won't be ever at any point of time. But I don't see it coming out in very near future. I won't see it happening in a year's time or so. It may come out maybe after some period of time, more than 5 years, 10 years. I don't see it happening in very near future, at least.
Okay. Because I'll put my faith in Melinda Gates. And on that note, we move to the question and answers. Before that, we request our viewers to please bless us with your support in terms of contribution. Like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel. Not just subscribe yourself, also if you can persuade some other people to subscribe. Every subscription grows our power. And press the bell icon. And of course, the crowdfunding project is very much live. Fatawa Alamgiri, we request you to have a look at that, and if you can help us with that as well. Questions and answers.
Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Virus is mutating fast. Is it genetically modified, Dr. Rana?
There is a simple law about it. The more number of times the virus replicates, so the higher number of cases that you see in a country or in a particular geographic area, more is a chance of it mutating. So the more number of times it passes through the individuals, the more it will mutate. If you have higher number of people, more number of mutations. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is genetically modified. My only premise for saying that it may not be a natural virus, as I said in my opening remarks, was that it is not behaving naturally.
Right. Next one. Mithilesh Kumar, it seems that the second wave variant in India was deliberately sent by some other country. Khan Market guy had ordered oxygen concentrator months before.
Well,
What do you say, Dr. Rana again? I think,
As I said, seeing COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 as a bioweapon, whether it could be used as a bioweapon in a limited situation, I don't see it as happening as such. Certainly somebody came up with aerosols or somebody came with a container of a virus and threw it in open market. Because it doesn't happen like that. Bioweapons are very, very differently used, and they use a very specific settings. How exactly do they do it? So it's not a very easy thing to handle that somebody goes and puts it in Delhi and the bioweapon starts. It doesn't work like that.
Poonam, questions for Dr. Rana. Why the black fungus now post COVID-19 in India? And how do you tell if the fatal pneumonia in the patient was due to COVID or not?
This is not typically a question for me. This should go to a medicine man, but I would answer the second part of it. How do you feel the fatal? Most of the times, COVID-19 presents as bilateral pneumonia. Why do deaths occur at this point in time? We all say that there's a cytokine storm that has been associated with COVID-19 virus, and that cytokine storm kills the person. It's not the fact that virus enters; it's the body's own immune system which responds to the virus in a particular way that causes death. And to be very honest with you, again, as I keep saying, to be very honest with you, at this point in time, epidemiologically, I'm not able to assign a risk analysis as far as death is concerned. Now, this is the person who will die, or this is the person who won't die. We say that somebody who reports earlier has better oxygen capacity is more likely to survive. But what we see in the second wave is that even young people, robust, healthy people, have died because of the pandemic, and we are not very certain with our prognosis as far as death is concerned. I won't say that this person will survive because he's healthy, doesn't have a comorbidity, or has reported earlier to the hospital. It doesn't happen like that. All of a sudden, you will see a patient deteriorating and dying. It does happen in this second wave. So that's again which is not in the natural realm of which doesn't point a very natural virus or the natural nature of the virus. And black fungus is some people have been attributing it to the use of steroids that has gone with the treatment protocols that are being instituted for the management of COVID-19, and this mucormycosis or the black fungus happens because of the fact that patients are put on steroids, and fungus is an opportunistic organism which develops because of the fact that the human immune system goes down because of the use of the steroids at that point in time.
And next, Kinjal Patel. Why doesn't Nicholas Wade's research on origin of Wuhan virus not supported by various government? Why no further research?
Nicholas,
sorry, I just wanted to say that I have read Nicholas Wade's research on this entire thing, and he makes a very powerful case. But as Dr. Ji said earlier on, the cartel will not let these information flow. But think about it this way: it supports my contention. You and I know about it now. That's how the news will go, and go back to my theory of economics: demand and supply. We have
the gatekeepers won't allow it.
Yes.
The gatekeepers are keeping the gate closed.
Right.
The whole scientific world, not just the medical world, the entire scientific world is actually hindering progress due to this gatekeeping phenomenon.
That's right. And there is
We
a way
know
to break. There is always a way to open the gates. We know that.
that. Let's see. We have to forge the keys. Next question, please. Ravi Verma, how USA can put any action or sanctions to China, as both are permanent members of UNSC? With time, this matter will stands void. The US putting sanctions on China doesn't require UNSC sanctions. They will put their own governmental sanctions, as they have done on Russia. Russia also has a veto.
The joke about this one is that Chinese objected to, why did you put money in my country for this kind of a deadly research? And US told China, we didn't know that you would be so stupid to leak it out. So the question here is that I have my favorite theory. The whole world will be at peace if the 5 Security Council members, who are the largest sellers of weapons around the world, if they stop selling the weapons, there will be instant peace. There will be no instrument to fight with.
Well, next. Reena Sukhdev, why are there no campaigns run on Ayurveda boosting immunity just as strong as vaccine campaign? This is the best time to lean on our ancient knowledge. Well, that's been my grouse for a long time too, that there is no money put into Ayurveda research at all. I was principal secretary of Ayurveda in Rajasthan, and I found that taking India, which should have been actually the beacon of research and beacon of knowledge to the rest of the world, only 3% money goes into Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is the first line defense as far as Rajasthan was concerned. It was always the first line defense, because the Ayurvedic dispensary were available at a less than, at a lower than PHC level as well. But they didn't even have medicines. Till the Ayush mission came, they didn't have the medicines either. And if a person had to go 100 kilometers to fetch Ayurvedic medicine, he would rather go to allopathy. That's how it was. So
that's what I was saying. This is something that has been systematically done in this country. If you look at what was there before independence, or even the earlier parts of independence, we always talked of an integrated system of healthcare, wherein Ayurveda had a part to play. But over a period of time, we developed a class system in healthcare, or a hierarchical system in healthcare, which said allopathy is the best, and then there is Ayurveda, then there is others. So that hierarchical system was built to favor that syndicate. And that's, again, I'm coming to that point. And the second, or the unfortunate part with Ayurveda, has been that the proponents of Ayurveda have not been putting the scientific evidence in India's domain, India's narrative domain, over a period of time. So if you look at what they are doing. So I ask my Ayurveda friends that if some aspects of disease have been benefited by your intervention, why don't you talk about it? Why don't you tell people about it? Why don't you build an evidence on this? So that's something that has been missing there, which probably over a period of time with this Ayurvedic mission coming up has been changed. But still, unless and until we break that class divide, break that hierarchical system in health in India, we won't be able to give a life of lease to the Ayurveda.
All right. Next one. Sir, what's this black fungus thing? It has been notified as an epidemic in Rajasthan. Well, it's a fungal disease, as the name suggests. And it catches when the immunity is low. And I think I will not put time on this, because black fungus you can simply find out from anywhere. It doesn't require an expert. Is this current targeting of India, the way Dr. Raina just said, an intensified attack by the frustrated, failed economic hitmen of the West?
Well, it is not the failed hitmen of the West. The West is concerned. Like we talked about Ayurveda and allopathic part of it. So look at the resurgence of organic food. Look at the resurgence of off-the-shelf, over-the-counter medication that people don't need to take. These have Ayurvedic base to that. Our tragedy is that while we talk about Vastu, people are building buildings here with Vastu component, and they advertise that it is designed for a spiritual settlement and peace in the house. But Vastu is our concept. Ayurveda is our concept. So as a health wellness part of it, Ayurveda is important. But, India is not a target for the hitman from the economic point of view. One of the factors has been that India has kind of disappointed the world because it has not met its full potential for delivering the economic goals that they wanted to achieve. And that's the frustration, in my opinion, that it has not delivered. हम liberalize कर रहे हैं, आज 5% पर 10-15-25% next time. It doesn't work that way. When you want to have a transformative place, then you need to go all the way. And that's we have not done. But there are certain positive things happening, and I hope India will achieve its full economic potential. That's what will give us power to influence things around. Right now, we have no power to influence things.
Okay, next. Rishi, Dr. Raina, Vijay missed it last. What is this? Missed last 2 Wednesday session. I have a question on Bill Gates' pharma affairs. Was it because of him that US wasn't ready to share vaccine? And is Gates Foundation blocking IPR to India, Vibhuti Ji?
I do not have any clear-cut information on this, so I apologize for that. But whether Bill Gates is expounding that entire IPR to India, there is a conspiracy of that, but I have no clear information, so I apologize for that.
My 2 pence on this is that India's move to liberalize IPR is not for itself, but it is part of its global diplomacy. India doesn't really need their IPR because it has its own co-vaccine formula, and which is unique. And the co-vaccine actually is proving to be one of the best vaccines in the world. So as far as India is concerned, it has secured its supplies. I think by December, everybody should be vaccinated, if the vaccine hesitancy doesn't remain the way it is. So that's not the IPR thing that India is talking about. I think it's not for itself, but for the world. Do you agree, Dr. Raina?
As you said, that India has secured its vaccines for till December. I'm not very convinced on that, because if you are looking at Covaxin at this point in time, which is an indigenous vaccine, Covaxin has a capacity to build around 1 crore vaccines in a month. Even if it is able to double this number, triple this number, or develop other facilities that are being looked at are not in the best of shape at the current time to develop the vaccines of the same magnitude that Bharat Biotech is developing. So if we are looking at 10 other facilities which are using the same patent that is available with Covaxin, and they're developing 10 crore vaccines, we are still have a shortfall of vaccines. Because if you look at the vaccines, we have another 6-7 months of vaccination to take care of. We will require around, if you are vaccinating everybody, we will be requiring around 280 crore doses of vaccine if you are going for 2-dose regimes. So we will be requiring 280 doses of vaccine. So if you are thinking of 1 crore doses per day, so you will need 280 days. And 1 crore is a target which is very difficult to achieve. The maximum that we have been able to achieve is around 40 to 45 lakh, the maximum that we have been able to achieve. So there are 3 things with regard to this vaccine: the delivery of vaccine, the delivery points of vaccine, and the availability of vaccine. At this point in time, we don't have the vaccine delivery points as well as the vaccine availability, the supply part, to think that we will be able to vaccinate everybody by December. building on. I don't just talk of Covaxin. Even included Covishield in that. Despite these two, I don't think we will be able to meet that.
But we did have this government plan that came out day before yesterday, which showed their uh, complete planning of vaccination. So, what about that?
I, I, I agree with you. I agree with you that there is a complete plan in place. But you look at this way now. Say, for example, Bharat Biotech is making the vaccine, or Serum Institute of Pune is making the vaccine, and now we want to work in 10 different facilities which will develop the same vaccine. Now,
And
these
now the
different
Sputnik
facilities,
is also going to be produced here. Sputnik is
Clotting is
also.
also be there. But these different facilities which are to procure, which are to develop these vaccines will need to go through the processes. They will need to apply the process has the applications have to be processed so that they are capable of delivering the vaccine of the same quality that is being given by Bharat Biotech at this point in time. So we have the plan in place, but meeting the targets by December of vaccinating everybody is very difficult.
Okay. Let's move to the next question. Sauman Chanda, why Western world, especially EU, Germany, France, UK, and also US, afraid to question and confront China? Same true for WHO. Even Western media is silent. I think that already been given. It's a syndicate.
Right.
It's not China alone. So that answer is already on the table. Next. Kinjal Patel, if you can't create 100% effective vaccine in lab after knowing the virus well, why do you research in creating modified viruses in the first place? Dr. Raina.
Now, this is something that doesn't need an answer. So why do people create viruses? People create viruses for two purposes. People create viruses. They claim scientifically to create viruses or to test viruses to create vaccines. Other thing is that you always look at the world if you look at the world in a conspiracy mode, they always think of viruses, bacteria, rickettsia, protozoa in a mode that they will be used for, for as a deterrent for people to be threatened that this is something that can be used as a bioweapon. I'm not sure what exactly she's wanted to ask.
Okay, next. The Pfizer CEO said that a third dose might be needed. Okay, this wasn't suggested by virologists, so that's a good way to make money, I guess. I'd say. Seems like Big Pharma want to make most of this apocalypse.
This is something that I talked when I was talking about this. The Pfizer has said that the third dose will be needed. Now, most of these vaccines which are using two-dose regimes will need the third dose. That's why I said that December will be a difficult ask, because if you look at India, so if you have vaccinated anybody by the second dose in June, you will need the third dose for him. If you are looking at the pandemic to be stretching into the next year, unless and until you think of cutting down the pandemic, reducing its impact now, you will have to take care of these vaccine doses time and again.
Okay, next. Poonam would be the right person to put the faith in Melinda Gates. Okay, at least I have one support. There is nothing more deadly than a woman's sperm. Hell hath no fire than a woman's sperm. Vijayji, could it be possible the Gates conspired with Biden Jr. on hounding Bharat Bio and SII in India and conspiracy of the Indian variant theory? Rishi.
What to say on this? When
You've got to be a good conspiracy theorist to know this.
Yeah. You already said conspired with Biden Jr. Now, if there was a conspiracy, those two know. I don't know. But hey, as the world says, anything can happen. So.
Okay. Next. Dr. Raina, I asked how to tell post-mortem if the pneumonia was due to COVID-19 or not. Pneumonia was pretty common earlier too, Poonam B.
Now, the answer to that is that at this point in time, post-mortem is not something which is done on COVID-19 patients. As a policy matter, unless and until it is very necessary, the post-mortem is not being done. it's very difficult to tell whether the death was because of the COVID-19 or not by using post-mortem as a technology. We can use verbal autopsy tools to assess whether the death was because of COVID-19, but we don't use post-mortem as a methodology at this point.
Next. Nilesh Pillai, Dr. Shankar Chetty of SA has figured out COVID fatality can be checked if antihistamines are given early on. Judicious use of prednisone. Your views?
Prednisone is being used. Prednisolone and other steroids have been used in COVID-19. Not in all cases. When there has been a moderate intensity disease, people have used it. And this has been one of the drugs that has been found to be successful in tackling. Of course, of late, we have changed the protocols. The government of India has changed the protocols with regard to use of steroids also. Antihistaminics are again being used, but whether they do have a role or not, it's very unsure. Steroids have been found to have a role, and there's a biological plausibility theory for steroids to have a role, because once the virus enters human body, it takes around 4 or 5 days to multiply to such a level that it induces a cytokine storm in human body. And why these steroids are used to suppress the role of suppress the role of immunity, autoimmunity that humans develop against their own cells. Now, the problem with COVID is that human beings counter their own cells and kill their own cells. So these steroids are used to suppress that part of it. In that, steroids have been found to be useful. But antihistaminics, I'm not very sure about.
Next. Rishi, black fungus observed in second wave effect. Isn't that proof that a new variant is leaked with deadly side effects and deliberately targeting India? I think it's already, Dr. Raina has already clarified. There is no evidence of particularly targeting India. Am I right?
I would say bioweapon, using it as a bioweapon and targeting India is something that I don't think happening. But reaping the benefits of the fact that it happened in India and India was not able to reap the benefits of successes in first wave, and then targeting it for its failure has been something which is targeted. So the world has leaped on. Everybody across the world, whether it's the lay press, the scientific community, they have all found a way to hit India. For it being not able to gain the benefits, achieve the benefits, or maintain the benefits that it had in its first wave. As I keep saying, India did remarkably well in first wave. We had very low mortality. We had very less problems of managing the logistics. We maintained a good amount of success as far as the pandemic itself was concerned, but we were not able to maintain these gains in the second part. And the world jumped on us because they were not happy to see us successful. We wrote a paper, me and one of my American colleagues, we wrote a paper in the early part of February itself, wherein we said that India has been able to reduce a number, and how did they do it? So we just listed some of the reasons, how did they do it. And in that paper itself, we wrote that the world wants to write India's obituary, in a sense that world wants to target India for it being successful. World was not happy to see India successful. If you look at the first wave itself, when the numbers were falling, the world would say that these magicians, the magicians of India, have done some magic and they have reduced the numbers. And once we started failing, then they started targeting us for our failures to control the pandemic. The world was not happy that we were successful. That's a fact.
That's the bias. That's the inherent Western bias that we have. And we keep talking about it and our cultural analyses. Mithilesh Kumar, Ayurveda can gain acceptability in the whole world if they prove efficacy by clinical trials. They do all the time. Even Ramdev with huge money is not doing. Of course he's doing, not the government. Even the government is doing. Please read what is called the Pharmacopoeia of Ayurveda. There is something called a pharmacopoeia. I don't know whether you understand that. And because I have been associated with Ayurveda as its principal secretary in Rajasthan, so I have been through all these places where all these clinical trials take place. Very elaborate. The only thing is that the funding is so low compared to allopathy. Karan, the total government health expenditure has been in the range of 0.86 to 4% in the last decade. How much should it be? If we increase it, what should we invest in? I'm not sure what particular statistics are you talking about? Because most times people only take the budgetary amount that is there in the Government of India budget. But the Government of India budget doesn't indicate this at all, because health, basically, the health and sanitation is actually in the state list. And so you have to take the state budgets also into consideration. So I'm not sure whether you've taken that. So if that be the case, then your question would not pass muster. Dr. Raina?
The second part of the question is very good. Where should India be investing? India should be investing in comprehensive healthcare. It should start investing in public health. And unfortunately, it has not been investing in public health. It has been investing largely in vertical programs, and these vertical programs have not been giving us any yield. So India needs to go back to what it had been doing for last 100 years, investing in public health. We should have enough of investment in public health.
Okay, next. Dr. Raina, Poonamabi again. What do you suggest to those some people I think the question is not properly worded. What should people do to stay safe who cannot be immunized due to their medical history? I am one, and so far I am negative.
The fundamental principles of staying safe remain the same, that you need to follow what they call the COVID appropriate behavior. Uh, Wearing good quality mask is very important. This is something that I keep emphasizing. Wearing any type of mask is not important. You wear a face cover or face mask is not the correct way of doing it. Wearing good quality mask is very important, and wearing it at all public places or private places is very important. If you are in a family and you know what your other family members are doing, you are very sure about their history of contact, then only drop your mask. Then only you can move around in the house without a mask. If you are not sure about their antecedents, if you are not sure about their history, you are not sure about where they are moving, keep wearing a mask in the home as well.
Okay, is N95 a good quality mask?
Absolutely. N95 is a good quality mask, but you want to be sure about which type of N95 you are wearing. I would suggest there are few things that Indians, that's why I keep saying that Indians have not been used to leverage their own strengths. Now, if you look at most of the homes, now N95 is a mask which can be worn outside, but if you look at most of the homes have dropped on their ventilation capacities. Now, every house should have good ventilation. If you have the doors and the windows, keep them open. The moving air will help you remove the virus, even if it is in the family which has been circulating in the family. Now, another contradiction that has come up with the CDC of late is that whether this is an aerosol borne or the airborne, and again, that's where I come, that I don't believe that this virus is very natural, because if it was purely airborne, then temperatures would have helped us, because higher the temperature, less the chances of an airborne virus infecting people, because the lighter, warmer air will take it away from us. But the fact is that it continues to infect people in the summer months when the temperatures are high. Again, tells me that it's not a natural virus of the way we are expecting it to be. So whether airborne or aerosol borne, wearing a good quality mask, increasing the ventilation, keeping a track of all people who are around you, where do they go, limiting the number of people you meet are the key, which India has not used very well in the second part of the pandemic.
Okay, next. Rishiji, VJji, knowing our today's discourse, but still you're passing comments on recent toolkit and Kejri Singapore blunder. No, sir, not allowed. I will not allow that question. Next. Vaccine manufacturing capacity is not enough to vaccinate every Indian. Then why eligibility has been open for all above 18, creating chaos? Mithilesh Kumar. Well, above 18 is still only about 75% of our population. More than 25% is children below 18. Next. Kinjal Patel. Okay, the research should be on creating vaccine for known virus. SARS-1, Ebola, MERS. Why do government fund modifying viruses to make them deadlier? Yes, Dr. Raina, your question.
Now, as I said, that if you look at Ebola, Ebola has a very good story. If I tend to narrate this story to everybody. Now, prior to Ebola becoming a problem and WHO finding a solution to Ebola in 2014, there was a presentation made in the WHO. It was 2 months prior to Ebola being targeted as a success story by WHO. And the presentation read that involving the community and using community as a methodology, using community as a tool to prevent the outbreak of Ebola will be successful. But the WHO did not agree to that because it didn't fit the known concepts of pandemic management or the known concept of public health management which is circulating in WHO. As I said, it's again the same. Use vaccines, do these things. This is something which is fairly common in WHO circles. So they thought that let us go with a vaccination policy or let us use some other technology methods to take care of Ebola. But they failed. And it was WHO who later on accepted the fact that Ebola was controlled in large parts of Africa by the involvement of community itself. It was the community who mobilized their own resources, that they kept track of their own people, and they were able to control Ebola more than the fact what WHO envisaged. WHO said, we will use contact tracing techniques, we will use these and these methods to counter it. But the involvement of community was much more successful. But WHO initially was reluctant to use that technique. So that's why this vaccine theory is again that people are very interested in vaccines. Vaccine is something that everybody is interested in, WHO and others as well.
Sharath Chandar, your view on DRDO's new anti-COVID oral drug, 2-deoxy-D-glucose.
Now, to me, it sounds good, and we will have to see over a period of time. It should be the game changer as far as COVID-19 is concerned.
Okay. Cosmic Lover says the amount of antibodies matter because one doctor has died even after taking 2 doses. Your thoughts, what could be the reason?
Now, if you look at the vaccines that are available in India, there are 2 types of vaccines. Now, there is 2 things is vaccine. One is its efficacy, and second is the number of people which you are wanting to vaccinate. Now, both these vaccines which are in the market, Covaxin is a better vaccine. We know for a number of reasons Covaxin is a better vaccine because it is built on a very robust platform as compared to Covishield. Covishield is not as robust as Covaxin is. It's a more stable vaccine as compared to Covishield. And the Covishield vaccine has an efficacy of around 60 to 70%. People have said that it may go up beyond 70%. And once the duration of dose increase or after some period of time after receiving the vaccines. So when you say that your vaccine is 60 to 70% efficacy, you are leaving a lot of gap for those individuals in whom it is not developing enough of antibodies to protect them from infection itself or the fatality of infection. So maybe the doctor who died may not have developed enough of antibodies to protect himself from the severe form of the disease. Not that infection can occur in anybody. Anybody who receives the doses, 1, 2, both doses, he may be infected. But it is a severity of disease which is something which is controlled by these vaccines, much more than the fact that somebody is being infected.
Okay, next. Dr. Raina ji, in your assessment, what is the longevity of black fungus in comorbid patients and can Ayurveda help in this? STG, I have healed myself from cox spine from Ayurveda.
Now, as I said, and I keep saying that the benefits of Ayurveda are immense, and it has been proven in different aspects of life. I have seen personally there are enough of anecdotal as well as evidence-based data that has come on Ayurveda. But with regard to black fungus, I'm not sure whether it is going to help because I am not a very big proponent of Ayurveda. I am not used Ayurveda as a treatment for black fungus. So I'm not very sure on this.
Okay, next one. Srinivas Rao, SARS-CoV-2 has mutated and become efficient as this pandemic. And could a third wave come with a couple more new strains and knock the vaccines useless?
This is something that I would love to answer, because I am not very happy with the idea of inevitability of the third wave. Now, why does waves come? If you look at why do waves come? Now, if you look at the number of cases that we were reporting in the first wave, it ran up to 1 lakh at the maximum point in time. In fact, 98,000, something around 98,000 by the end of September, in the middle of September, 15th, 16th of September. The fact that we had high number of cases continuously in the first phase made it possible that there will be a second wave. And in the initial parts of the February, the numbers that we were hitting were around 9 to 11,000. And that number stabilized at around 9 to 11,000. We didn't see a downward trend in the month of February, a continuous downward trend beyond 9 to 11,000. So if in the first week of February, my numbers were around 10,000, in the middle of February, they were around 11,000, 12,000. So they stabilized at around 9 to 11,000, 12,000 numbers. And when we have such numbers with us, we always have a chance of having another wave, because these numbers will keep multiplying. So what's the best way for us to prevent the third wave? That is something that is very important for us. Reduce the numbers as much as possible. Identify all geographical areas which are reporting high numbers and get them to zero. By getting them to zero means not having zero cases. It means that we don't have new cases in a period of 2 weeks in all geographical areas which are reporting COVID at this point in time. I can assure you, if we are able to reduce numbers to a large extent, we will be able to save the third wave. You look at this way: the first when we pushed in the first lockdown, the numbers were around 500 with us, and we were able to save this country for a large period of time from huge numbers that could have come up to us, because the pandemic was spreading like anything. So if we are able to reduce the numbers, again, we will save ourselves from third wave. The fact that we are saying that the third wave is inevitable is something that I don't appreciate in a huge amount at this point in time.
Okay, next. Reena Sukdev, black fungus due to strong steroid use compromising healthy gut bacteria can be supported with strong strains of probiotics to rebuild gut will help. Well,
black fungus is a fungus and probiotics are bacteria. So I don't see there is a connection between the two.
Next. Kinjal Patel again. Pharma company other than India are able to create RNA-based vaccine in record time. Doesn't it point to lab-created virus and info shared with them? Conspiracy theory.
I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this, because if you look at the vaccine development, the fastest vaccines that have been developed in past have been with regard to the Asian flu that we had or the Hong Kong flu that we had. We were able to develop vaccines in a period of 4 to 6 months. Unlike what people say, that this is the fastest we have done, we were able to develop vaccines for in earlier pandemics as well in a very record period of time. To develop a vaccine in a record period of time is not unknown, but whether they have been tested effectively is something that has to be taken care of.
Next. Siddhant, why are EU and USA looking helpless against China? They can easily counter China in both might and money. What's the compulsion? The syndicate. Alex, that's already answered. That was answered long time back.
That's
it's
right.
the syndicate, friend. It's
That's
not
true.
China alone.
Part of
Next.
the same tribe, as the saying goes.
Yes. Next. Krishna Sundar, absolute risk reduction is 1.1 for Pfizer and 0.7% for Moderna. If the numbers for Covaxin and Covishield are about the same, then what's the point in giving the vaccine to a vast majority of young people who are immune to Wuhan flu?
This is something that I didn't understand. Who is immune to Wuhan flu? Now, this is, I'll all say, this is technical experts say it's a novel coronavirus and we can't be immune to it on day one. This is something that has happened due to us. So we can't have an immunity against this. We may have an immunity against normal influenza viruses that have been circulating around us, the influenza pandemics that have happened. But this is different. This is something similar to SARS, which happened in 2002-04 and the MERS one. but it is not similar to the flu virus that keeps troubling us day in and out, but is not very fatal.
Next. Okay, Balaji Varadarajan. This question is already answered, Balaji. And this is answered only in the previous question. So it's not inevitable. That's what it was said. Krishna Sundar, vaccine trials usually take 2 to 6 years of safety data before final approval. Current vaccine shots by Pfizer and Moderna released under emergency use authorization, but not FDA approved. If injury or death occurs by law, you can't any legal recourse against these companies. I will take vaccine only if it's FDA approved. Your view, sir. I mean, it's your risk, sir. That's all. It's your risk. The governments have given you a safety valve. You don't want to take it. It's your risk. It's a common sense answer. I don't even need to go to the doctor to get this answer. Next. Krishna Sundar, an antibody might stay in the body forever. If it's a good one, great. If it isn't, is there any way to reverse it, Dr. Raina?
Antibody doesn't stay in human body forever. It doesn't work that way. Even for the viruses that have been known to be more stable than the one this is. For example, measles is something that we have all encountered in our life, and we are vaccinated for measles in a pretty young age. We carry the antibody for a long period of time, but it too wanes off after some period of time. Maximum time for which it stays in our body is 20 years. It doesn't go beyond that. But for COVID-19, the time limit is very small. The current research says that it stays in our body. The antibodies which are there because of active infection vary from 3 to 6 months, which may be protective, which may be because of vaccination that we receive, may last for 6 months to be of such an extent that it prevents an infection. So that's why the people say that we need to be vaccinated again after 6 months against COVID-19. But antibodies don't last forever.
Okay, next. I think people want to know everything about COVID-19 and the vaccines today.
Absolutely, because there is so much of uncertainty, and
human and aliens. That was the question.
That's right. There's so much of uncertainty. People.
How do you think they spread virus for the second wave? Can be through testing kit and other medical things? That's a conspiracy theory, right? That's another conspiracy theory.
The person who is asking is human and alien, so you can.
Yes. Next. Mary, my friend is on blood thinner since a year for pulmonary embolism. Is there a risk of blood clotting post-vaccination? Should she postpone vaccination?
Now, keeping the situation that this patient is, I would suggest that she should go for vaccination, but only under observation. Vaccination is very good for those patients who are suffering from a comorbidity. They should get that done, but only under observation.
Next. Okay. So I think the moment I mentioned that people want to ask everything, we come to the end of the questions. That's great. And so that I take the opportunity to thank first the viewers, and then I have to thank specially today Dr. Sunil Raina. And as I promised, it did become a rollicking session. Vibhuti Ji, thank you to you as always.
Thank you.
And a wonderful session we had. I think it was most enlightening for all those who watched it. And those who have watched it can tell others also to watch it because it was so educative. Thank you. Good night. Jai Hind. Vande Mataram.
Jai Hind. Vande Mataram. Take care.
Vande Mataram.